Hi everybody and welcome. Again, it's Wednesday, August 28th, and it's actually the Feast of St. Augustine. But before we get to that, I just want to mention that this weekend we will be back in the church, God willing, and I want to thank everybody for your patience and your help. I hope you like the new painting in the church, the paint job, and I also am very excited about moving the Blessed Sacrament to the center of the church, and I think it really is where Jesus needs to be, at the center of our lives, the center of our church, center of our families. If anybody needs any of our confirmation kids or anybody needs any service hours, tonight, Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, we'll be in the church putting things back and getting things in order. So if you'd like to help out, just show up at the church tonight, August 28th at 6 p.m. Okay? Thank you so much. You know, St. Augustine is a very powerful saint, and we can't really talk about St. Augustine if we don't talk about his mother, St. Monica. Monica's feast day was yesterday on Tuesday, and now we celebrate St. Augustine's feast day. And I think we all know the story of St. Augustine, how he, wasn't really part of the faith. He really lived basically an immoral life. He was really brilliant. He was a great speaker. He basically was living with a woman. He had a child out of wedlock. It caused his mother a lot of concern. She prayed for him and prayed for him and prayed for him. And it wasn't until he was about 30 years old that he met St. Ambrose, who was a bishop. And St. Ambrose had a great effect on Augustine, answered a lot of his questions he was struggling with, and he came into the faith. There are a lot of parents who really are in the same boat as St. Monica today. We really have lost a lot of young people in our church. I think the church at times is sort of hemorrhaging young people. You hear a lot of statistics on that. I just read a statistic recently that said that like almost 80% of children brought into the faith, as infants, by the time they're 23, like 80% of them leave the church. This is a big concern to all of us, and I think especially to parents when you worry about your children. So what do you do? Well, St. Monica was a great prayer, and that's one thing we need to be doing is praying. And one thing I want to just bring to your attention is there's this ministry out there called St. Monica Ministry. We began it here at Queenship and BVM here during the summer, and it's really a wonderful ministry for anyone who's struggling with a loved one who's gotten away from the faith. There's a beautiful little book. It's called Return. And the subtitle is How to Draw Your Child Back to Church. And I've been reading this book, and it's really excellent. It has some just really practical things that we can do. And there's no magic bullet. There's no one way to do something to get people back to church. And it causes a lot of heartache to parents today. And one of the things that I think we got to focus on, and what comes to mind is a line by Ambrose when St. Monica was talking to Ambrose, and Augustine had not been converted yet, and she was pouring her heart to Ambrose. And Ambrose said to her, "Speak less to Augustine about God and more to God about Augustine." In other words, stop trying to convince Augustine to get into the faith. Rather, turn and talk to the Lord about Augustine. And that really is the power of intercessory prayer. And that's one of the things that's brought out in this book that really touched me. It's prayer, fasting, and sacrifice. Okay? And when I say, prayer, certainly we can say all sorts of prayers, and I think novenas are good. There's a lot of different novenas of St. Monica. There's quite a few different prayers in this book that are helpful too. But I also think sometimes the prayer that we offer up is our pain, that heartache that you feel. That's a prayer. See, it's good for us to say prayers to God, and we do, and talk to God from your heart and all that, say the rosary, do all that. But when you and I offer up our pain, that costs us something. See, that pain is real, and that pain becomes the prayer that we offer up for our loved ones. And fasting, they go into fasting in the book, and we're all about that too. We certainly give up meat on Fridays during Lent and all that, but we could do more fasting. And fasting is not about feeling pain. Fasting is about being unattached, so God can be number one in our lives. And often you and I don't know how attached we are to things until we give them up. And then you really miss them. You're like, I was so attached to them. And of course, we can, let go of so many different things that we're attached to. Maybe our own thinking, our own opinion. But I do think today with the internet the way that it is, a lot of times what we need to let go of is just our attachment to social media or just things on the internet or how much we watch TV. Yes, be informed, but we spend way too much time on that. One of the insights I got in this was when I was reading something about most products that you buy. You go out and buy shoes or clothes, and there's this product, and they're trying to sell it to you, and that's all part of the capitalism in the American way, so to speak. But when you're talking about like the social media and the internet, the product that they're trying to get to you is your time. They want you. And that's why when we go into things on social media, it pulls us in. And all of a sudden you're like, boy, I just spent 45 minutes looking at something stupid, But that's the whole point. They want your time. And that's why people are walking down the street with their phones right here, like running into things because they're just so addicted to the phone. And often you and I could just set that telephone aside. I think we're going to find that that's going to open up a whole avenue for prayer. But you're going to have to feel the emptiness when you let go of it. There was an analogy used years ago that I really liked, and it really was used more in the area of how numb we become to, actually it was about sexual stimuli. And this author went in to talk about, pornography and things like that. And he said, years ago, where would you see things that were stimulating? Back in the 50s, it might have been like the Sears catalog that came home, and it'd be like the lingerie section or the bra section or whatever. And then from there, Playboy came out, and that was like considered incredibly explicit at the time. But by today's standards, it's not explicit at all. And then you had Penthouse magazine, then it went to DVDs and CDs and all this, and then finally, where people would go to bookstores, men might go to bookstores, adult bookstores, and then the internet became possible, where it's right there in your home, and it's very, very explicit, where a man could be in his little study there watching pornography while his kids are playing in the other room. And the analogy that I read that was so poignant to me it's the analogy of, and it's true, if you were to take a frog and throw it in boiling water, it would jump right out. But if you put a frog in lukewarm water and gradually turn it up, it would very happily boil to death. And that's what happens when we become desensitized to things, and not just in the area of, like, say, sensuality, but also in the area of how much time we spend on our phones. We're just so much in it, we don't see it. And that's why I challenge you, put the phone aside for a day. People are going to get along without, having to be in touch with us every second of every day. And that just opens up a whole nother horizon where we have time for prayer. And that's part of the fasting and part of the sacrifice, is offering that up when you feel that emptiness and who's trying to contact me, and am I not an important person? And set it aside, my brothers and sisters. Any spiritual guru, Christian or non-Christian or whatever, would always talk, any mystic, about detachment. And we need to become detached from the things of this earth so that we can become open and attached to Jesus Christ, to God, who is number one and should be number one in our lives. But we're all so distracted and we don't see it. That water's boiling and we're just in it very happily, boiling to death. That might be a lot to meditate on today, but I think when we're talking about St. Augustine and St. Monica, there is so much heartache out there of parents worrying about their children, the states of their soul, that this is serious business. And what can you and I do about it? Pray, fast, give stuff up, sacrifice. And even the little sacrifices that we do each day, to offer them up for our children who have gotten away from the faith. St. Monica waited 30 years before St. Augustine, came to the faith. And I think Ambrose said to her towards the end there, when she finally, St. Augustine came around, he said to her something like, "Woman, the child of so many tears shall never perish." That a mother's tears, a father's tears for their children, those tears are prayers offered up to God, and God does hear those prayers. Let's never give up praying for our children and for all those who have gotten away from the faith. God bless you.